Hey friends, it's Olivia, and today I'm going to be doing my wrap-up for Booktubeathon 2017. During this week, I read all 7 books that I planned on reading, which is amazing. Did not expect to actually read all 7 books, so I'm pretty damn proud of myself for doing that. I read 7 amazing books that I'm super excited to talk about, so let's just jump in to the wrap-up, shall we? The first book that I read was a book that I picked for the challenge of read a book you bought because of the cover and read a book in one day, and that is Nimona, the graphic novel by Noelle Stevenson. This graphic novel follows Nimona, who kind of attaches herself to the supervillain Lord Blackheart as his sidekick, and they begin wreaking havoc in the kingdom that they live in, and as the novel goes on, Lord Blackheart begins to care a lot more for Nimona, but also learn a lot more about her past, and her secrets, and her powers. The art style and the aesthetic was super beautiful and super consistent throughout the entire book, so it was really a pleasure for the eyes to read. The characters as well were a lot more touching and well fleshed out than I thought they were going to be. I got really attached to Lord Blackheart and Nimona, and by the end I felt a lot of emotions for them and for the situation that they were in. I also really enjoyed the magical elements of this novel. The fantasy world they were in kind of combined science and magic, and it was really interesting. And I honestly want more from this world and these characters. Once it was over, I was super sad that that was all I had to enjoy in this universe. The next book I read for the challenge to read a book with a main character who is very different from you, and for that I read North of Happy by Adi Al-Said. This book is about Carlos, a Mexican boy whose brother just passed away very tragically, and in his grief he decides to shirk all of his responsibilities and his parents' heavy expectations for him, and kind of just run away and pursue his dream of working in a kitchen. I mentioned my TBR that I love books about food and I love books about the restaurant world. I work in a restaurant over the summers, and while it's a very different restaurant than the Michelin star one in this book, I really loved how perfectly the author captured that environment and that world. There's so many just great details about food and food prep and cooking and what it feels like to be in a kitchen and the kitchen hierarchy of restaurants, and that was consistent throughout the whole novel, so I really enjoyed that. Besides that though, this book was just kind of good for me. The main girl, the girl that he falls in love with, is such a manic pixie dream girl. In the 3rd page that you meet her, she's like, I have parent issues, I have abandonment issues, and that's her entire character, is her having abandonment issues. So that kind of put a bad taste in my mouth. The parts that I enjoy, the restaurant parts, kept this a fun and a good book, and a book that I'm glad that I read, but it's not really anything to write home about, I guess. The next book I read for Booktubeathon, I absolutely have nothing but amazing things to say about, and that is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This book is about our main character, Star Carter, who is the sole witness in her close childhood friend being shot to death by police in an awful act of police brutality. And this case ends up getting a lot of national news, a lot of press, and Star has to watch how it affects the very rich, wealthy prep school she goes to, her community that she lives in, her friends, her family, and herself. And as time goes on, she realizes that her voice is extremely important to this case, and she can have a massive impact just by using it. I expected to appreciate this book, and I expected to appreciate the political commentary that it's making, but besides that and that appreciation, I just loved it so much as a work of fiction as well. I think that Angie Thomas in this book essentially just held up a mirror to this situation that we see in our society today about police brutality. So many aspects of this case and this story, both Star's perspective, both the victim's perspective, just mirrored so well so many cases that we've seen going on every single year. I feel like she really exposed these issues and just so perfectly laid them out, and as well, there's so much in this novel. It's not just about that sort of case of police brutality, it's about how that case affects communities, it's how certain communities are viewed, it's about the race aspects, it's about the media and the politics involved, and the personal grief that happens in these cases. I felt that with a less talented writer, it could have felt very jumbled and rushed and jammed in, but I just feel like everything came together so perfectly well, and Angie Thomas was able to make this story with so many characters that I loved and cared about, and so many just moments that actually made me cry out of nowhere and made me super emotional and super invested. I just expected to like this book, and I just loved it so much as a political work, as a work of fiction. I seriously highly recommend this to anyone. It absolutely deserves the hype that it is getting. The next book that I read for the challenge to read a book completely outside, and every single page of this book I did read while sitting outside, and that is The Vegetarian by Han Kang. This book is about a woman who, after having some brutal and graphic dreams, decides to cut all meat and animal products out of her life and become a vegetarian. And it's told from 3 perspectives of people in her family, sort of as they try to reassert control over her choices, or kind of instrumentalize her and act out their own issues or desires or attention on her. It's a very unique book. They're definitely, throughout the text, throughout every single moment, there's a lot of social commentary and meta commentary definitely going on that makes me almost want to read the book a second time, because I feel like the first time reading it, I was reading it, I'm like, I know there's some deep messages here, but they're just kind of going over my head right now. Like, they're not fully sinking because there's still so much to read. I don't know 100% how I felt about it. It was, like I said, a completely unique read. There were so many moments where I was like, I have no idea where this is going, this is getting bizarre, this is getting strange, but I kind of enjoyed feeling that way in a book, feeling completely like I had no idea what to expect. The next book that I read is another graphic novel, and that is The Complete Mouse by Art Spiegelman. This is Art's father's story about his time pre-World War II, during World War II, in Auschwitz, in the concentration camps, and also after, once the war had ended. One thing I loved about this book was how Art kept himself as a character. It wasn't just his father's story, he also included his situation, talking to his father, teasing the story out of him and who his father was years and years and years after World War II had ended. And it pushed forth this idea that I really enjoyed, that being a survivor is complicated, that going through unspeakable horrors and coming out the other side doesn't automatically make you an angel or a perfect person or make you happy or solve all your problems. There's still mundane issues and complicated issues that you have to go through every single day. And I loved how that was such a present theme in this novel through Art's voice. I also just loved how he managed to get all these details out of his father. It clearly was so much emotional labor and work for his father and for him retelling the story, and I'm so appreciative that he was able to create this book and able to put it forth. One thing I will say that I feel like captures this novel so well is that I know that there's so many small moments and parts of the story and Art's father's story that I'll remember for a very, very long time, that really stuck in my head and that made a huge lasting impact on me. The next book that I read for the challenge to read a hyped book, and that is More Happy Than Not by Adam Silvera. This is about a boy named Aaron who's going through a really rough time. His father has just committed suicide, and he meets another boy named Thomas in his neighborhood and become very, very close, very good friends, and Aaron begins to realize he has feelings for Thomas. Aaron is really upset about those feelings, afraid of those feelings, and he wants to enlist the help of a new clinic in the Bronx that has the power to erase memories and suppress memories so he can erase the memory of ever having feelings for Thomas. I enjoyed this book so much more than I expected. Wow. First of all, I love the writing, I love the world that he created in this novel. I thought that all of his characters were really complex and fleshed out and very, very flawed in a way that made them relatable and made them very human. It was so emotional and so raw. It really dealt with some things that are incredibly, incredibly emotional and difficult and hard. And I feel like Adam Silvera just like stared right in the face of those issues and laid them out for the reader to see. And it just packed such a punch, this novel, that really, really left me like shattered and emotional and just, ugh. What are the words I can use? And finally, the last book that I read, which I read for the challenge to read a book with a person on the cover, is The Lost Hero, the first book in the Heroes of Olympus series by Rick Riordan, another series set in the Percy Jackson universe. This book follows 3 new characters in the Percy Jackson world, Jason, Piper, and Leo, who all discover they are connected to this world of Greek gods on the same day when they are attacked on a school field trip. However, Jason wakes up on the day of the field trip and has absolutely no idea who he is, how he got there, who Piper and Leo are, despite the fact that they seem to know him and remember him. Once they get to Camp Half-Blood, they are wrapped up into a quest that has massive stakes and massive consequences, and part of that quest seems to have the ability to reveal to Jason who he is and all his memories that he has lost. I forgot how fun the Percy Jackson universe is. It was just so fun being back in this world and reading this story again. It's been a long time since I read a Rick Riordan book, and I forgot how just every single chapter has a new adventure, a new crazy action scene, a new funny character, or funny just thing to encounter and thing to meet. I think Rick Riordan is playing a lot more with the Percy Jackson universe and kind of challenging our conceptions of it and challenging things he's done in the past in the way he wrote this novel, which I really enjoyed as well. I'm not going to rush to read the next book, but I definitely actually do want to finish this series just because I think it's hard to write a book with an adventure that is so enthralling and engaging while still being really enjoyable, and Rick Riordan is clearly really good at that, and so I want to keep reading books like that. So overall, for Booktubeathon, I read 2,326 pages in a week, which I think is pretty damn good, thanks. I read 7 books, I completed all 7 challenges. That's really all there is to it. I had a fantastic reading week. Please, by all means, down below, let me know what your experience was. If you've read any of these books, feel free to discuss them down below as always. Let me know if there's any videos you want me to make in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll talk to you soon with another video.